Chapter 25:13. You are really infatuated with him, Gu Shizhou sneered. Why don't you think about it? If Di Fui was here and saw me experiencing a catastrophe, he will definitely be protecting me. Why wouldn't he show up? Yun Yanli snorted. Maybe he is paralyzed. Gu Shizhou smiled with ridicule. If this explanation makes you feel more comfortable, you can go ahead and comfort yourself. Yun Yanli remained silent. In fact, he also felt that this reason was far-fetched. The last time he saw Di Fui, the man still looked well. Although he suffered some injuries and his skills were not as good as before, there was no indication that he would be paralyzed. What's more, he had already rested for 7 to 8 days. If anything, he should be stronger than before. So, he is not here. Yun Yanli seemed to understand what was going on. After all, this was the most reasonable explanation. Gu Shizhou chuckled but did not speak. Where is he? Do you think I will tell you? Gu Shizhou, my patience is limited, even for you. Yun Yanli pinched a spell with his fingers, and a spear-like object appeared on its fingertips. I will count to 3. If you don't tell me his whereabouts, I will immediately order the men on the shore to kill your friends and your clansmen. Gu Shizhou remained silent. She pondered the situation, and after a while, she finally said coldly, in fact, there is no harm for me to tell you. He has already returned to the devil world. Nonsense, my people have been guarding the entrance to the devil kingdom for days. No one had entered. Stupid. He naturally knew that you sent people to guard the entrance. Do you think he will just deliver himself to you? We knew that you would use my clansmen to force me out one day and that you would bring your most elite squad. Do you think the soldiers that you left there could stop him? Yun Yanli clenched his fist. He did bring all his elite troops with him, leaving not more than 8 people at the entrance to the Devil Kingdom. Those 8 people were certainly able to deal with an average person, but there was no way they could deal with Di Fui. So, it turns out that you have thought of everything. Deliberately attracting my people here to pave the way for him to return to the devil world. Gu Shizhou smiled. Yes. You are really infatuated with him. Of course. He is my husband. Who else would I be infatuated with? Yun Yanli smiled slyly. Gu Shizhou, I didn't expect your taste to be so poor. It seems that a child managed to lure you away. Aren't you afraid that the people in the upper bound would make fun of you for it? Gu Shizhou slightly closed her eyes and answered indifferently, I am following my heart. I am not concerned over any gossip. Yun Yanli suddenly laughed. Really? That's good then. He then brought her straight to the shore. The young palace master and the rest of his subordinates were waiting for their next instruction. When they saw him returning empty-handed, they knew that he had not found Di Fui, so they did not dare to ask any further questions. Gu Shizhou let out a sigh of relief. She had always been rigorous in her work and liked to have a backup plan. Over the past few days, she had set up a wizardry barrier at the bottom of the lake together with Kun Shui. This wizardry barrier was colorless and transparent to anyone looking at it from the outside. The barrier was actually set up for Gu Shizhou to hide in if Yun Yanli ever managed to find a way past the wizardry barrier. It would also be a good place to hide Di Fui's statue if anything ever happened. She certainly did not expect to experience a catastrophe at the same time that Yun Yanli broke into the valley. It made her a live target, and she knew that she could not hide. Therefore, before she experienced the catastrophe, she buried the jade statue into the wizardry barrier. Kun Shui went into the lake with Guardian Jean in the middle of the battle. He actually hid inside the wizardry barrier as well. Yun Yanli thought that the 2 persons had run away, so he did not chase after them. As long as Yun Yanli did not capture Di Fui, there was still hope for a comeback, no matter how badly things turned out. She was worried about his well-being, but she did not show it on her face. In fact, she kept her eyes closed most of the time and just focused on healing her injuries. However, the cries of a donkey made her suddenly open her eyes. She did not see the donkey in the crowd, but she certainly recognized its voice. It was Zhu Duqing's donkey. Did that mean that Yun Yanli had captured Zhu Duqing? When she opened her eyes, Yun Yanli already knew what was going on in her mind. He waved his hand to signal the soldiers to spread out, revealing Zhu Duqing, who was trapped in a net as well as his donkey, which was tied up. The donkey had spent a few days with Gu Shijiu before and had grown fond of her. It had treated her as a friend, so seeing her definitely made it hopeful. It kept talking to Gu Shijiu as though it was complaining about something. Zhu Duqing was very embarrassed and ordered the donkey, "Don't scream." He apologetically looked at Gu Shijiu and said, "Master Shijiu, I am sorry." Gu Shijiu felt sorry for Zhu Duqing, as well. If it were not for her, Mr. Zhu would be safe and sound in the devil world. She had abandoned him for Di Fui, which made her feel guilty about his current predicament. Initially, she thought that even if Yun Yanli caught him, the man would be kind to him. However, she did not expect him to be trapped in the torturous net while his donkey remained tied up. Gu Shijiu turned to look at Yun Yanli and then looked away. "Why have you kept him in a net?" Yun Yanli chuckled. "If you promise to marry me, then I will let him go." Gu Shijiu was speechless. This guy was sick. Yun Yanli's eyes clearly showed his disappointment. However, a smile suddenly appeared on his face. "He is your precious apprentice. He would sacrifice anything for you. Although he had escaped from me before, he still worried about you and even spied on us. However, he was caught by me. Can you bear to watch him being tortured to death?" Gu Shijiu did not speak. Yun Yanli then looked at Zhu Duqing. "Mr. Zhu, see for yourself. It seems that you are not important to her." Yun Yanli was very good at provoking people's relationships. In just a few words, he managed to turn the situation in his favor. However, Zhu Duqing was not a fool. He disdainfully replied, "You are just trying to provoke us." "I don't buy it." Yun Yanli's facial expression changed very abruptly. He instructed the young palace master at his side, "Peel off the skin of this donkey." The donkey was raging. It never thought that it would be the one who got the bullet. How did it manage to get in between all these parties? The donkey screamed furiously. The scream was loud as a dragon and shook the stone houses in the distance, causing them to collapse. Even the surface of the lake was moving violently as if someone were boiling it. Everyone covered their ears and stepped back. "Don't scream. Bastard. Don't scream. Do you want to kill the people here?" Zhu Duqing cursed. Chapter 25:15, Let's go down and take a look. Yun Yanli had initially guessed that this donkey's screams were able to destroy the wizardry barrier. Looking at the expression of Zhu Duqing's face, he seemed to be more sure of himself that this donkey possessed some unique ability. Yun Yanli suddenly remembered that Kun Shui had jumped into the lake. He turned to look at the surface of the lake and suddenly had an idea. A smile then appeared on his face. "Perhaps, there is a wizardry barrier in the lake." Gu Zijia's body went slightly stiff. Yun Yanli had nothing to lose, so he instructed, "Let's go down and take a look." He pulled Gu Shijiu with him and wanted to jump into the lake again. Boom! A vast waterspout blasted over the lake. A gold figure leaped into the air and turned into a golden-winged bird. When its wings flapped, it rolled up a hurricane that blew the people off their feet. The golden-winged bird flew into the air, intending to escape. However, Yun Yanli's eyes were sharp, and he clearly saw that two people on the back of the golden-winged bird. Due to the large head of the golden-winged bird, the two people on its back were well hidden, making it difficult for anyone to see their faces. Even so, Yun Yanli's eyes were razor-sharp. He laughed merrily. There was indeed a weirdness in the lake. "Let's capture them." Finally, he passed Gu Shijiu to the young palace master. "Look after her. If she runs away, I will peel off your skin myself." The young palace master promised to take care of her. Yun Yanli knew that Gu Shijiu was slick enough to escape. Therefore, he sealed a few acupuncture points on Gu Zijia's body to the point where she could not even move her fingers. Then, He personally went to catch Kun Shui. It was a big fight. There were too many adjectives to describe this battle. However, the end of the battle was just as everyone expected. The giant bird was once again held captive by Yun Yanli. Guardian Jean was severely injured during the fight, as well. He was originally guarding the jade statue, but when he fell, the jade statue also fell from the air. Gu Shizhou watched the jade statue fall from the sky from a few hundred meters in height. Her facial expression suddenly changed, and she wanted to teleport into the air to catch it, but she was now powerless. She could not even scream. Jade was extremely fragile, so the statue would definitely break once it fell to the ground. Gu Shizhou was always very careful with the jade statue as she understood how fragile it could be. She did not expect that she would let fall from the sky one day and be unable to protect it. Even an iron statue would be deformed if it fell from such a height. Yun Yanli also saw the jade statue fall. When battling with Kun Shui, he thought that Di Fui was one of the people sitting on the giant bird. Later, he saw that it was a jade statue. He was very disappointed. He thought that Gu Shizhou had carved a jade statue of Di Fui because she missed him. Being caught up with Kun Shui and Guardian Jean, he had no interest in the jade statue. Even when he saw it fall, he did not think twice about it. In fact, he would be happy if the statue crashed and shattered into pieces. The place where the jade statue was headed was a training ground. The ground was cold and hard, so no matter how it fell, she was sure that it would break into pieces. However, just when the jade statue almost touched the ground, a layer of white light suddenly surrounded it. Chapter 25:16. This jade statue was really strange. The white light seemed to have counteracted the momentum of the fall and supported it to land on the ground gently, without even a trace of dust. Everyone remained silent. Was this a spiritual jade statue? Or was someone protecting it? The jade statue sat there steadily, like a Buddha. An auspicious light surrounded it. The young palace master suddenly shouted, "This is the god statue that appeared the other day." The people who were present at the valley were the elites that Yun Yanli had brought out from Legua City. Looking at the statue more clearly, they agreed with the young palace master. Yes, this is it. It must be it. Whose jade statue is it? There were differing opinions, but the crowd was getting noisier. Gu Shizhou seemed to be on a roller coaster ride today. Although she was less worried now, she was too weak to do anything. Yun Yanli squinted slightly and coldly said, "That is the Devil King, Di Fui." As I said, he was the one who created the chaos that day. Everyone remained silent. Although the lie that Yun Yanli created was perfect, Kun Zuyu's appearance caused the people to be skeptical. Many people secretly went to other cities to check on the starry arrays, but they could not find any of them yet. In fact, many among the elites here today were still unconvinced by Yun Yanli's alibi. However, seeing this jade statue made them suddenly question themselves for doubting Yun Yanli. The man knew that his reputation had been tainted. Little did he know that the opportunity had arrived for him to clear his name. "Master, do you think that the Devil King made this jade statue? Or is this the Devil King himself? Was he originally a spiritual jade?" The young palace master curiously asked. Yun Yanli looked at Gu Shizhou. Although Gu Shizhou was trying to stay calm, her pale face sold her out. She clearly cared a lot about this jade statue. Moreover, this jade statue was really strange. He took Gu Shizhou back from the young palace master and released a few of her acupuncture points. He then brought her close to the jade statue and smiled as he said, "It seems like Di Fui had really turned into a jade statue. No wonder that he did not help when you experienced the catastrophe. This is unusual. Could it be that his original body is really made of jade?" Gu Shizhou closed her eyes and did not speak. She just let him continue to guess. Yun Yanli walked around the jade statue to observe it. He raised his hand and wanted to touch it. This jade statue is really unique. Gu Zijia's facial expression changed. "Do not touch it with your dirty hands." Yun Yanli squinted and sneered. What can you do if I want to touch it? He had never gone against Gu Shijiu before. But since she could not get her heart, why should he listen to her? After all, she was now merely his prisoner. Besides, he wanted to slap the statue. He raised his palm and was ready to land that slap. He wanted to slap this person for a long time. Even if he could not hit the real person now, he would be satisfied enough to hit his statue. When his palm was about to hit the face of the jade statue, the jade figure suddenly burst into a circle of colorful light, and repelled Yun Yanli's palm. Pooh! The colorful light seemed to have crashed into Yun Yanli. The man did not manage to slap the statue but instead was shocked by the colorful light. This jade statue had a wizardry barrier around his body. Yun Yanli raised his eyebrows in surprise and chuckled. This jade statue is really strange. Chapter 25:17, Worst case scenario was to start over. Earlier, Yun Yanli was only thinking of slapping the statue without any spiritual power. However, given that he had learned more about the statue, and also that it resembled his enemy, he was now more motivated to land a powerful blow to the figure. This time, he put in about 30% of his power into the attack. Don't! Gu Shijiu desperately rushed to the jade statue to protect it. Gu Shijiu successfully distracted Yun Yanli, who turned his slap into a grab. He picked her up and threw her over to the young palace master. Look after her. Again, he exercised his spiritual power to land a blow to the statue. However, the result was the same. A colorful light repelled his hand. The counteracting force was stronger than before, which hurt Yun Yanli's hand. Would the colorful light match the force that attacked the statue? Yun Yanli squinted his eyes with evil intention. He now exercised the full capacity of his spiritual power and converged it in his palm. His palm looked as though it was glowing with a wave of power. Being an immortal being herself, Gu Shijiu could tell that Yun Yanli yielded the power of a great deity. This kind of force could shatter a diamond into dust. What chance would a jade statue have against it? It would probably turn into powder in less than a second. Although Gu Shijiu would risk her life for Di Fui, there was nothing that she could do right now. Running around frantically or screaming would be of no help. Hence, she simply closed her eyes and hoped for the best. If Di Fui were taken down, she would help seek revenge for him if she had to go to hell to do so. She would shred Yun Yanli into pieces and would turn his soul into powder. After that, she would be on the lookout for Di Fui's reincarnation. The worst-case scenario was to start over. Besides, he had reincarnated before. Yun Yanli's fist was headed toward the jade statue. It was so powerful that a gust of strong wind accompanied it. The people nearby had to take a step back. Pang! The earth shook for a few seconds. Everyone clearly covered their ears and even used their spiritual power to help to protect their ears. Nonetheless, the crashing sound kept them in a daze for a few seconds. The villagers who did not have much spiritual power fell to the ground and vomited even though they covered their ears. The blood in Gu Zijia's chest seemed to tremor vigorously. Her vision went dark for a moment, and her heart sank into the abyss. She merely kept her eyes closed the entire time, afraid to see the end result. The loud gasping from the crowd caught her attention, and her eyelashes flickered as she opened her eyes. She was stunned. The jade statue was still sitting there in good condition. It was as if nothing had happened. On the other hand, Yun Yanli was a few feet away from the statue. The repelling force had pushed him into a boulder, which he crushed upon collision. There were dust and fragments of the boulder all over his body. Nevertheless, Yun Yanli still stood firmly. Although he was not injured, his ego was certainly bruised, and his handsome face turned green. Ha ha ha! Zhu Duqing laughed. City owner Yun is mighty. You actually flew into the distance from the effect of your own power. Awesome! You looked like a goose that landed on its ass. What a stunning sight! After he was teased by Zhu Duqing, he was even angrier. He raised his palm and wanted to shoot something at Zhu Duqing. Zhu Duqing was sent away rolling on the ground from a vicious attack. However, he was a stubborn man and refused to stand down. He swiftly spat out a mouthful of blood before laughing scornfully. Ha! 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 That was great. Are you trying to prove yourself by defeating me? Yun Yanli certainly did not appreciate his mockery, so he hit him another time. Yun Yanli had gotten almost everything that he wanted from this trip. However, the strangeness of it all left him with a weird feeling. Many of his men were curious about the jade statue and started to guess what material it could be made from that made it so indestructible. It managed to embarrass the almighty Governor Yun so publicly. Moreover, could the statue be the Devil King? Was he the one who had brought a series of doom and gloom to the Shura world? Could a statue really be so powerful? And, if the Devil King had always been so powerful, he should have conquered all of the cities a long time ago, right? Why would he stay hidden in the Devil Kingdom for so long? Some people were well aware that the Devil King had mastered some degree of kung fu that was certainly admirable. But, they also heard that it was nothing above that of a golden immortal. Logically speaking, the Devil King would still be defeated by Yun Yanli if they were to battle one another. Therefore, how could the Devil King's statue cause so much resistance to Yun Yanli when he was obviously not a match for him? Perhaps, the statue did not belong to the Devil King but belonged to God. The crowd started to make some speculations, but no one had not found the courage to voice out their thoughts. They only stared at each other blankly, waiting for some direction. Yun Yanli could tell that some of his men were starting to have some doubts about what he had said before. He looked down and put a tight smile on his face. Burn this place. Let's go back, he said nonchalantly. A wildfire engulfed the entire place almost instantaneously, and the villagers could be seen sobbing. For the past week, they had been leading a very peaceful and secure life back in the valley. Then, a fire came and took their homes away. They knew that they could always rebuild their homes, but how could they restore the wizardry barrier that could shelter them from the corrosive blood rain? Even if they survived this calamity, they could only live in the city from now on. They would have to be the scum of society again. They turned to Gu Shijiu and caught her staring at the fire as well. Even in such a difficult situation, she did not look very depressed. From her eyes, they could clearly see the courage that she possessed. Her presence alone had become a pillar of hope for the people. Everything was possible if they made it possible. Moreover, Di Fui's statue possessed such an incredible source of power, which also proved that he was not only alive but was also growing stronger. As long as he was alive, they could be hopeful. He will surely wake up, they thought. And, he would come back stronger than before. It was often said that a man's mistress should be kept in a splendid abode. Emperor Wu Di of the Han dynasty used to be fond of his cousin, Chen Ajiao, so he made her a promise that if they were to get married someday, he would build her a splendid house decorated richly in dazzling gold to show her how much he actually adored and cared for her. When they finally got married, he did as promised and made her a very beautiful house in majestic splendor. For a while, she was the only one who had all of his attention. However, things changed when he had a change of heart and fell for someone else. She was deposed and stripped of her title as his queen. She ended up spending her entire life being imprisoned in the palace, never to see the emperor again. Gu Shijiu knew the origin of the legend. What she did not know was that one day, she would end up staying in a majestic house, or more accurately, be imprisoned most fancily. The interior of the building was magnificent and luxurious. From the walls to the ceiling, every inch was plated with gold. Even the sandalwood furniture was all finished with gold linings. The bed in the middle of the room was also made of gold, covered in curtains that were woven from golden silk. Surprisingly, the toilet bowl in the corner was even made of gold, too. Her eyes were dazzled by the amount of gold and yellow charm in the room. It had been 3 days since the start of her captivity. About 7 or 8 acupuncture points on her body had been sealed to make sure she had no strength to even stand up properly. A casual walk around the room would drench her in an extensive amount of sweat. The structure of the room was a little odd, though. Instead of a square, it was actually the shape of an octagon. Instead of calling it a house, Some might prefer to refer to it as an array formation. Anyone who had been following this incident would know the main purpose of this formation, which was to prevent Gu Shizhou from teleporting. Therefore, Gu Shizhou was trapped in the place. To minimize any chance for an escape, Yun Yanli did not even send any servants to help her. He must have been concerned that the female servants would end up being manipulated and used by Gu Shizhou. For the past 3 days, Gu Shizhou had not seen a single person. Furthermore, the golden house was also soundproof, so she could not even tell what was actually going on. She was the only one in the confined space, with nothing but silence in the air. Her breathing had become the only sound in the room. There was not even a window. The place was solely a box on its own. There was only a door for outsiders to come in, but it was constantly sealed, so there was no way she could open it. The place was so quiet that it would drive anyone crazy if they stayed there for too long. Normally, people would do all sorts of things just to feel that they were not alone. For example, they would talk to themselves or even sing out loud just to fill the void. However, Gu Shizhou did the opposite. She never even spoke a word. After realizing that she had no way out, she stopped wasting her energy. Instead, she focused her attention only on meditating. Even though she could not properly use the spiritual energy that was sealed within her body, she still continued to meditate for a few hours at a time. Slowly, she would take a walk in the house before sitting down for another round of meditation. Shizhou, are you used to your life in here yet? The golden door was suddenly open, 3 days later. Yun Yanli could be seen walking towards her with a big smile on his face. Gu Shizhou did not answer him at all and continued to sit very still. This action made Yun Yanli slightly irritated. Although he did not visit her in the past 3 days, he was able to see everything that happened in the dwelling. He had thought that Gu Shizhou would be very grumpy for being held captive, but she remained disciplined, like an ascetic monk with a tough will. He took a walk around the place and said with a smile, "Shizhou, you have once told me about a young wife who lived in a plush house. I made a promise to myself back then that I would build you a golden house someday. Now, I have kept my word. How do you feel about this golden house? Do you like it?" Scornfully, Gu Shizhou gave him a tight smile without saying anything. How did she actually feel? She felt that Yun Yanli was nothing but a cynical parvenu, a man with nothing else but money. When she was traveling with Yun Yanli in the upper bound in search of a mighty immortal, the journey was rather boring. Knowing how much the muscle liked to hear stories, she casually told it about the young wife with a plush house. Yun Yanli, who was just beside her, heard everything. Never had she expected that one day he would build her the same confinement in gold. Nonetheless, a normal house that was made of gold would not be able to stop her from teleporting. Hence, Yun Yanli must have cast some spell over this place to block her from teleporting. Yun Yanli tried to initiate some small talk with her, but she did not respond. It was as if he were dead to her. Annoyed, Yun Yanli decided to talk about something that she might be interested in. "Do you want to know what I have done to the jade statue?" Gu Shizhou finally answered, but with mockery, "Did you get thrown away again?" Yun Yanli was speechless. He acknowledged her with a sneer. "It is only a jade statue. Do you really think I cannot do anything to it? I have only been sparing it because of you." In fact, he had tried many ways to shatter the jade statue over the past 3 days, using heavy objects and even fire. He had thrown it hard against the floor, too, and even blasted it with his spiritual power. Nonetheless, the jade statue remained intact without even a scratch. The powerful 7-colored wizardry barrier around the statue was able to resist all the external forces he used. He was quite bothered about it. He only brought it up to get Gu Zijia's attention, but she decided to uncover his lies right away. "You are not sparing it. The fact is that you can't do anything to it. Don't make yourself sound so great." Chapter 25-20, What could be the person's intention? After a short pause, he suddenly let out a laugh. "Do you really think I can't do anything to it?" He said it in a calm tone, but his intention was clearly evil. Gu Shizhou teased him, "So what if you can hurt it?" You are only torturing the statue because you cannot find the man himself. Does that make you look any better? The statue is Di Fui. Yun Yanli exclaimed confidently while locking his gaze on her. Gu Shijiu closed her eyes to avoid him. Yes, the statue is the man. You should keep on trying to attack it. Yun Yanli could not get any hint from her expression, so he paused for a while. Shijiu, I have good news for you. Would you like to hear it? He suddenly laughed out loud. Gu Shijiu did not even look at him. All of his news would be bad to her, no matter how good he made it sound. At this point, nothing could be worse than what she was experiencing at the moment. Hence, she did not quite care. Yun Yanli took a chair over and sat down next to her. He then took a look around the place. Then, all of a sudden, he started talking about the most random topic. Shijiu, there is something I have not told you. Before we met, I once had a dream. In the dream, someone told me that I was destined to meet a woman from Earth. The person in the dream told me that I would risk anything for her and even descend to Earth as a result of a catastrophe. I was too arrogant to believe anything from the dream, and I didn't care about it either. Things changed when I met you. Unknowingly, I fell for you. I would spend all of my time with you in pursuit of the man you were looking for. It pained me every time you returned to Earth because I would have to wait for another 6 months before seeing you again. I knew that you were obsessed with another man, so I did not confess and only kept my feelings to myself. I thought that one day you would finally notice me because it was impossible to find a man who was already dead. Your kung fu was so much more powerful than mine, so I tried very hard to practice and make myself a better man. Suddenly, one careless move during a war sent me all the way down to the Shura world. I got depressed, so I got myself drunk every day until Yunqing Luo showed up. She told me that I would be the ruler of the Shura world. There was only one way I could leave this place, which was to become a mighty immortal, and the only way to become a mighty immortal within a century was to use these starry arrays. She was not interested in his confession at first, but could not shut her ears, so she listened on. Somehow, she could tell that there was actually a bigger and more evil plan behind it. She suddenly thought about the mysterious voice that would appear in her head sometimes. For a while, she had thought that it was a voice from some guardian of the heavenly law. She could not help but wonder if the voice actually belonged to the same person who appeared in Yun Yanli's dream. If what Yun Yanli said was true, the person would be the mastermind behind the starry array. Perhaps, the person had first taught it to Yunqing Luo, so that she could guide Yun Yanli through. What could be the person's intention in helping Yun Yanli's progress to become a mighty immortal? Gu Shijiu was sure that the person was not doing it for a good cause, as he or she decided to be shrouded in mystery. What could be the benefit of helping Yun Yanli grow? Throughout her contemplations, Yun Yanli never stopped talking. He continued to talk about how painful it was during his practice and that when he finally returned to the upper bound, his family was already broken up and decimated. He even told her that he could now travel between heaven and the Shura world at will. He continued to tell Gu Shijiu how happy he was to have met her in the Shura world. Chapter 25-21, her honest words speared into his heart. Gu Shijiu thought that she might be able to get some information from him, so she started paying attention. However, she ended up disappointed as he only talked about how much he adored her. Not wanting to waste an opportunity, she tried to ask, "Has the person in your dream told you anything more?" After babbling on for so long, Yun Yanli was relieved that he could finally get her talking. He fixed his eyes on her attentively and tried to engage her into a conversation. "I have never seen that person's face. I could only hear the voice of the person in my head. Later on, the person told me that I was in control of my destiny. If I worked hard enough, I would surely get what I wanted. All that I have ever wanted is you, Shijiu." Gu Shijiu ignored his confession and only focused on what she was interested in. "Haven't you asked Yunqing Luo more about the starry arrays that are obviously evil?" Yun Yanli suddenly took her hand and smiled. "Of course I have. What do you want to know?" She was irritated by his physical gesture and stupid question. If she did not want to know more, why would she even bother to ask? Gu Shizhou wanted to take her hand back, but was too weak to resist him, so she sat quietly. Marry me. Marry me and become my wife. I shall tell you everything that you want to know. Bewildered, Gu Shizhou turned speechless. Yun Yanli, you should know that I do not love you. We were once friends. After all that you have done, I don't think we can even be friends now. Why should you force me to do something against my will? I am not afraid to tell you that Di Fui and I are already married. You and I are not destined to be together. The voice in your dream must be bluffing you by making you think that I am the one. You must be a tool for something bigger in his or her plan. Listen to me. You should stop holding on to false beliefs. I have merely become an obsession to you and nothing more. Gu Shizhou said it casually, but her honest words speared into his heart. After a pause, Yun Yanli suddenly broke into laughter. I see. What I have for you is only an obsession. Ha! I do not care if it is an obsession or love. So many years have gone by and the only thing I look forward to is our reunion. Reluctant or not, you are marrying me. I do not care if you and Di Fui have really become husband and wife. I will still marry you and end his life. I have checked the dates. The day after tomorrow will be a good day. I shall go now and prepare us a very glamorous wedding. Before Gu Shizhou could say anything, he added a scornful remark, there is no need for you to resist. I am not doing this for your sake, but mine. You can only wait until you finally become my bride. I will prepare a grand wedding and a big show for you to enjoy. He raised her chin and continued, Little Shizhou, you will surely be very surprised. I have invited all of the villagers and your friends to attend the wedding. Even though you have mistreated me, I am still giving you the best of everything. Delighted, he let out another laugh before leaving. The man had gone mad, and Gu Shizhou was just relieved that he left. Yun Yanli had completely disregarded their friendship in the past. This time, he was going to force her hand to get what he wanted. Clearly, he was doing all Fisto try to bait Di Fui out of the Devil Kingdom. Gu Shizhou tried to think hard for a way out of this mess. No amount of crying or tantrums could save her from despair. She could only keep calm and think. She tried to think of any clues based on his appearance and realized that the man still carried a faint evil aura around him, which meant that he had not taken the Kun Pearl. In other words, Kun Shui was still alive. Given that, she suspected that Guardians Jin and Hua must be alive, too. They were most probably imprisoned. As for Zhu Duqing, she had a feeling that she needed to be careful of that man. Since there was no way she could escape, she continued to meditate. Although she could not access her spiritual power, her physical strength had completely recovered from the catastrophe. All she needed was a chance to make a move. The luminous Milky Way glimmered brightly in the night sky. Specks of light formed into bright and colorful constellations. There seemed to be a canoe that was afloat along the Milky Way. The canoe was as blue as the clear sky, decorated with drawings of a stellar map. The starry night sky and the stellar map added radiance and beauty to each other, forming a dazzling picture. A man in charming purple robes was sitting on the canoe. On his head, there was a hairband, embellished with a glistening gem in the shape of a fox's eye. Gu Shizhou held her breath in disbelief. The man was clearly Di Fui. Was he awake? How did he come here? For a second, she forgot where she actually was and rushed towards him. Di Fui. With the help of her teleportation, she was traveling very quickly. However, no matter how fast she tried to get close to the man, the distance between them never seemed to reduce. It was as if she was running at the same spot. The man was still leaning casually on his canoe, with a fishing rod in one hand and his chin on the other. He was there, fishing on his own. Abruptly, she stopped running and looked carefully at the man. Something was not quite right. The man did not seem quite like Di Fui. Firstly, Di Fui did not possess such a powerful aura as the man did. This man also seemed carefree, seemingly aloof from all worldly affairs. His aura, however, was immensely powerful, as if the fate of all cosmic inventories was under his sole control. The sun, the moon, and the myriad of stars were mere specks of dust that moved according to his command. She stood gazing at him for a while and was quickly intimidated, so much so that she wanted to fall on her knees and bow to his mighty power. Who was this man? How could they look so much alike? In a daze, she started to make sense of the current situation. Was she dreaming? She took another look at the myriad of stars, and everything seemed familiar to her. Then, a sudden realization hit her. Could the man be the master of heavenly law? She had the same dream before, where the man was sitting within a cluster of stars. He was arranging the cosmic matters when she saw him. However, this man was fishing. In her earlier illusion, the man was not wearing any mask, but Gu Shizhou could never get close enough to see his face. She could finally have a clear look at him this time. From the way he dressed, every detail of the garment reminded her of someone she met before. She could not help but reminisce about her past. She specifically thought about a man who once had a very profound relationship with her, a man who had undoubtedly left a very long-lasting impression on her mind. She had an urge to call him Celestial Master Zhua but hesitated. Do you prefer to be addressed as Celestial Master Zhua, Huang Tu, who used to be the Lord from the earth, or Prince Nianma, Di Fui, who is now the Devil King? She was surprised by the sudden voice. She looked towards the source of the voice and saw a toddler standing in the distance. He seemed very young, probably about 2 years old. He was staring at her with his big, watery eyes. The tone of his pink lips completely resonated with the faint blush on his chubby cheeks. He was wearing a small set of silver robes that looked like an exquisite work of art. Gu Shizhou called him out loudly in astonishment, however. The toddler was not a stranger. He was the child that she found in the wilderness, the one who acknowledged her so eagerly as his mother. Chapter 25-23, The Master of the Heavenly Law. She recalled how small he used to be when they first parted in the Devil Kingdom. He was only a few months old. Shortly after, he had grown up so quickly. However, Gu Shizhou lowered her body to give him a hug. Di Hao waved his hands and clung onto her sleeves. Mother, he said while pulling her clothes. Gu Shizhou decided to squat and gently caressed his hair. It has only been a few days. Look at how big you are. What kind of magic pill have you swallowed? Di Hao was quite embarrassed. I did not take any pills. I have got this all from my parents, he humbly explained. Gu Shizhou was speechless. Impressive genetics, she thought. It was very similar to Di Fui. Who are your parents? Gu Shizhou was eager to find out. Di Hao looked at her with teary eyes as he said, Mother, don't you want me anymore? Gu Shizhou said nothing more, for she knew there was nothing she could get from him. She continued to observe the boy. He somewhat reminded her of Shen Nianma when he was little. Could the child be the son that Di Fui never knew he had? However, she was also sure that Di Fui would never lie to her. He would never get into another relationship with another woman. If he really had a son, she would definitely be the mother. The conflicting part was that she knew she had never given birth to any child. Nonetheless, some parts of her memory were lost. Everything about Huang Tu had been completely forgotten. She was quite sure that she had been married to Huang Tu, but after everything about him vanished, she mysteriously became a virgin again. Could he be the child she and Huang Tu once shared? Shouldn't your surname be Huang? Gu Shizhou immediately asked. No, my family name has always been and always will be Di, the child was absolutely sure. Gu Shizhou was a little lost. Di Hao looked at her with big eyes and was somewhat delighted by her cluelessness. Mother, stop trying to figure out my past. You will never get it right. You should just answer me. Gu Shizhou raised her eyebrow at him. What should I answer you? Celestial Master Zhua, Huang Tu, Shen Nianma, and Di Fui are all the same man. No, something about them is different. Think about it. If the woman he liked was your previous life, would you be comfortable with that? What about her previous life? Who was she in her last life? Gu Shizhou had never thought about it, so she did not know what to answer at first. Would she be comfortable with the fact that he was only nice to her because of their past? Gu Shizhou thought about it and realized that she could not grasp the concept at all. She was a very realistic woman and was never eager to find out about what could have been. However, the child seemed rather serious about finding out her thoughts. Therefore, she felt the need to answer him. She continued to rub the boy's head and said, "My sweet child, you are too young to understand the things that only happen between adults. You should keep the complicated thought until the day you become a grown-up. However, I can be sure that if he liked me, I would not mind if the one he truly fell for was the woman in my previous or later life. After all, there is only one soul in different physical bodies. I do not care much about the physical stuff, and it is unnecessary to compete against myself." Her answer seemed profound, so Di Hao took some time to absorb it. All of a sudden, he smiled delightfully. "My mother is truly an insightful woman. I get it now." Chapter 25-24, The Master of the Heavenly Law, 2. He raised his hand to put Gu Zijia's messy hair back in place. From the way he acted, she could tell how casually he treated her. Suddenly, Gu Shizhou had a thought that the boy was actually an adult who resided in the body of a toddler. The sudden thought sparked an idea in her head, so she asked him directly, "Di Hao, did you come from the future?" Distracted, Di Hao stopped messing with her hair and gazed at Gu Shizhou intensely. He was impressed by her precise assumption. It was rumored that a pregnant woman would lose the ability to think straight for at least 3 years after giving birth. Obviously, the same saying did not apply to his mother. His eyes lingered on Gu Zijia's stomach for a while before looking away. You can assume so. There were things that he was not allowed to share. Once he did, he would immediately vanish. Moreover, he had an unaccomplished mission to attend to. He turned his eyes towards the man in the stars and smiled. There he is. What was the boy talking about? Gu Shizhou followed his gaze and was surprised by what she saw. The master of the heavenly law, who highly resembled Di Fui, was still sitting in his canoe. However, there was another man in black who suddenly appeared and greeted him politely with a "Boy, my star lord." The man in black was obscured in a cloud of mist, so Gu Shizhou could not get a clear view of his face. She only had a feeling that the man was somewhat similar to the master of the heavenly law. Black was the coldest color of all. So, for a man who dressed entirely in black, he would either be very cool or very serious. She looked at the man in front of her and found him to be quite elegant and graceful. Furthermore, his aura was equally powerful and intimidating as the master of the heavenly law. From what she observed, the man did not look like a follower, but more like a friend. Otherwise, he would have greeted the master of the heavenly law with a bow. The master of heavenly law was still seated, casually lifting his chin with one hand. "Let us have a round, shall we?" Better to accept the offer than to refuse it politely, the man in black swiftly agreed. The master of the heavenly law waved his sleeves, and a chess set immediately appeared between them. On the board, all they had were a series of stars as opposed to black and white pieces. The men took their seats and started playing. Gu Shizhou knew how to play chess, but the way they played it was too complicated for her to understand. Their chess was nothing close to anything she was familiar with. Each of them had hundreds of star pieces, placed in a jumbled manner. Between the stars, there were many similarities, but each with different colors and brightness. A crisscross network of stars made it rather confusing for her to tell which pieces actually belonged to whom properly. Both of the men were, nonetheless, very familiar with their pieces. The way they played the game was swift and accurate. It was obvious that they played the game quite often. At first, Gu Shizhou was quite dazzled by the number of stars on the board, as she could hardly differentiate them. However, her impressive memory helped her memorize the sequence of their moves. There were about 2,000 pieces, but she never let any of the moves slip. When she could finally differentiate their pieces, she started to know who was actually on the winning side. It looked like the master of the heavenly law was leading the game. The boy next to her was looking at the game attentively. After a while, he started to explain the rules to her. Mother, you cannot recognize the pieces, can you? They are different from normal chess pieces. The game is actually known as the starry law chess. The composition is all about the law of the stars. The boy was certainly knowledgeable. Gu Shijiu threw another quick look at him and said, You seem to know many things. Where did you learn all of that? She tried to get more information from him. However, the boy was able to keep the secret to himself by answering her briefly, From my family. Chapter 25:25, The Master of the Heavenly Law, 3, she smiled at him. Is your father the master of the heavenly law? After a pause, he looked at her with a big smile. If you say so, then it is so. After all, you are the one who knows my father best. By the way, let me tell you more about the law of the stars. Every game actually represents the world. All the pieces on the board have the ability to affect everyone in that particular world. Every move could be a game changer. The boy continued to share with her. Gu Shijiu quietly listened without interrupting. She also took the time to observe the two men's styles of playing. Mother, let me tell you more about the respective pieces, the boy offered more explanation, as he could see the confusion on her face. Gu Shijiu shook her head and rejected him, no need for that. I can tell their pieces apart. Dumbstruck, Di Hao was very impressed. Mother, have you seen them playing before? No, this is my first time. Mother, you are so smart, just like me. Gu Shijiu caressed his head gently and said, Of course. How could I be your mother if I was not smart? Mother, can you tell their style by now? Gu Shijiu took some time to put her understanding in order. The master of the heavenly law is a relentless man who plays chess with unpredictable moves and kills pieces instantly for the sake of winning. He does not hesitate to sacrifice any pieces. The overall performance is quite brilliant. As for the man in black, he plays chess quite fast, too, but definitely with more caution. Sometimes, he gets indecisive and is reluctant to let go of some of the pieces that should be abandoned, but sometimes, he is quite harsh and will let go of the pieces that are still useful for the overall strategy. The man's character seems a little dark, as observed from his style of play. All in all, the master of heavenly law plays the game without any emotional interference, like a machine with no feelings. The man in black, on the other hand, carries emotions with him. From what I can see, the man in black will lose the game. Her explanation was thoroughly on point. Di Hao was very impressed. Then, he took out a bag of chips and offered the snack to her, so they could both enjoy the game. Gu Shijiu was right. The man in black had indeed lost the game. With a sigh, he complained, It seems like I can never defeat you. The master of the heavenly law answered casually, Your petty considerations have obstructed you. When you get distracted, you will be too afraid to lose, which is the sole reason for your defeat. When you finally learn to be at peace with yourself, perhaps you will win the game. After a long pause, the man in black responded with a chuckle. Brother D, as the master and the creator of the heavenly law, you certainly have to be tough and merciless. However, can you be sure that you will always remain this way, without any preference for good or evil? Can you always keep your emotions out? The master of the heavenly law finally caught something with his rod. Swiftly, he pulled a silvery red fish from below. The beautiful fish remained enthusiastic as soon as it was out of the sea of stars. Then, it transformed itself into the form of an exquisitely dainty and ravishingly beautiful lady. The lady was dressed entirely in silvery red robes. Lights danced in her eyes, as charming as the myriad of stars in the night sky. Anyone would be easily drawn to her flattering figure. Gu Shijiu knew that she had seen the lady before, but could not recall when. After being caught onto the canoe, she seemed frightened. Quickly, she fell to the ground and bowed before the master of the heavenly law. My lord, please spare my life. It is not easy for me to get to this point. The master of heavenly law looked at her smilingly. I know it has not been easy. You have troubled the entire kingdom for the sake of your personal achievement. Millions of lives were plunged into the abyss of misery because of you. The lady started crying. No, it is none of my business. The king made me do it. Chapter 25-26, The Master of the Heavenly Law. 4. Her face was as beautiful as the legendary Su Daji in the ancient Chinese story. Every wink and every smile was able to cause a wave of havoc with one's heart, but this was more apparent when she started crying. No one was able to resist the charm of a weeping beauty. The Master of the Heavenly Law only responded with a tight smile, so the lady assumed that the Master of the Heavenly Law was finally interested in her. She bravely took the first step forward to approach him. I admire you very much, my lord. You will be the only one that I love. You admire me? What will you do to prove it? My lord, you can ask me to do anything, and I shall obey, the lady answered in a soft, trembling voice. The way she spoke was seductive and bewitching. Temptations lingered in her eyes as no man was ever able to resist her seductive invitations. Even as a woman, Gu Shijiu was enchanted by her exquisite beauty. Indeed, the lady was a voluptuous creature. Bewildered, Gu Shijiu could not help but turn her eyes to the Master of the Heavenly Law for an answer. The Master of the Heavenly Law was still smiling at her. Come here, he invited the lady by reaching out his hand. Hopeful, the lady enticingly walked towards him and was ready to hold his hand. Before their hands touched one another, the man suddenly turned his hand around and struck the lady by enveloping her in a circle of white light. The lady disappeared, leaving only a fish behind. Refusing to take the defeat, the fish continued to jump around in the canoe. The Master of the Heavenly Law gave the fish a wave, and it was immediately sent to the man in black. In the blink of an eye, the fish was already descaled and cleaned. Use it to make soup. The fish is very nutritious. I am sure it tastes nice. The man in black had nothing to say. He sighed at the dead fish. You should know that the Master of the Heavenly Law is a heartless and merciless man, who never shows any tenderness to women. How dare you offer yourself to him? You have brought death to yourself because of your foolishness. Fan Qianshi, what did you make up about me this time? I dare not do anything of that sort. I was only telling the truth. How could you push such an exquisite woman straight into her death? Fan Qianshi, you are the creator of the universe. Being petty is not helpful in your situation. The Master of the Heavenly Law then gave him a smile. Since you have compassion for beautiful women, you should try to make the soup taste better. At least you can make the best out of her miserable death. All right, I shall leave it to you. Swiftly, the canoe disappeared. The man in black watched the Master of the Heavenly Law as he left. His black robe started to dance in the breeze as if a layer of dark aura surrounded him. After a while, he murmured to himself, can you really be unaffected by anything at all? Di Fui, I do not believe that you can be without love and desire. I was the one who created the world, but you are the one who has become the Master of the Heavenly Law. There was a faint tone of grudge in his inaudible utterance. Gu Shijiu still sat nearby with the bag of snacks in her hand. She felt as if she had just watched a show. Her soul had often left her body. All of the images in her dreams were arranged scene by scene. Fortunately, the characters in her dreams were unable to see her, so she could see everything unveil before her. She used to be alone in these dreams, but now, she had a little companion. Her little companion had even brought and shared food with her while analyzing the characters with her for a better understanding. Today, she encountered the Master of the Heavenly Law and the Creator of the universe. She thought that both names were actually assigned to the same men, but they were two different individuals, who were also friends. The Master of Heavenly Law's surname was also Di. As for Fan Qianshi, he played the role of the creator of the universe, which was equivalent to Goddess Nuwa, who repaired the sky and built mankind. While she was still caught in a daze, little Di Hao suddenly gave her a push and said, Mother, let's go back. I cannot hold on any longer. Soon, she started free-falling into a void while all of the scenes disappeared abruptly. Eagerly, she opened her eyes again, only to be dazzled by the golden charm in the room. She was still in the golden house. Everything that she saw was only a dream. Chapter 25-27, A battle of wits and courage. There she sat, trying to recall the dream, only to realize she had forgotten almost all of it. In a blur, she roughly remembered that she saw the master of the heavenly law was playing chess against a man who was known to be the creator of the universe. What a dream that was for Gu Shizhou. However, she realized that it seemed to be more than just a game of chess. Troubled, she tried to think hard for any clues but could hardly recall anything. Gu Shizhou was gifted with a photographic memory. Her mind retained everything she saw or read, but the dream was an exception. The images vanished very quickly, like something had shrouded her from seeing the truth and removed the traces from her head. She could not remember the two great men from her dream, but Dihao's presence clearly made an impression. She remembered that the boy had even shared with her a bag of snacks while watching the game unfold. Gu Shizhou would often retain the memory of her dreams when she woke up, but this time, everything disappeared almost instantaneously. Someone must have made her see the images and took the dream away when it was done. She soon got up, stretched herself, and took a walk around the house. The furniture finally got her attention. Ash seemed to notice something strange. The placement of the stuff was rather odd. Gu Shizhou tried to move the tables and chairs, but the pieces were already fastened to the floor, so she could not even lift them up. She knew that it was actually an array formation, one that she had yet to encounter. Also, she was probably too weak to break it at the moment. For the past few days, she had never stopped trying to analyze and decipher the code but never succeeded. Perhaps, the dream was like a hint. After she woke up, she started to see things differently. The array formation actually looked like the starry array. She could not remember who started the game first, but she clearly remembered how to solve it. Could the house be a key element in some sort of star formation? In despair, she also knew that she did not have the strength to carry out experiments to prove the theory. Therefore, she returned to the side of her bed and sat down. She raised her hand to wipe away the cold sweats that filled her entire forehead. Under the current circumstances, there was no way she could escape even if she could decode the array formation. She had to first remove the seal that was suppressing her acupuncture points. All of a sudden, the door was opened again. Yun Yanli was here to see her. He had even brought her a wedding dress and made her try it on. He claimed that he needed to see her in the dress. The wedding dress was beautifully embellished, finished with a highly elegant silhouette. The aesthetic of the dress was a testament to Yun Yanli's eye for beauty. Gu Shizhou knew very well that she could not fight back, so she agreed to put on the dress. However, he had to remove some of her sealed acupuncture points that limited her movement. She barely had any strength, so it would be challenging for her to put on the dress in complicated layers solely on her own. She could already imagine how exhausted she would be by the end of the fitting. Yun Yanli was not worried that she would play any tricks, for his kung fu was clearly much stronger than hers, so he agreed to free her movement in some parts of her body. Her strength finally returned as soon as he removed the spell, but her spiritual power was still inaccessible. Gu Shizhou put on the dress and looked absolutely stunning in red. Her face was a little pale, but the fiery red color of the dress was able to shed some vivid tones on her cheeks, which made it look like she was flushing crimson. Her beautiful, dark eyes were absolutely captivating. Yun Yanli stood still in a trance. He did not come with good intentions. He had always adored Gu Shizhou, but could never make the affection mutual. At the moment, he was able to hold her captive and force her into a marriage. Chapter 25-28, A Battle of Wits and Courage. 2. Yun Yanli had the desire to own her body. He wanted to make sure that this woman belonged to him. He brought the wedding dress with him because he thought that Gu Shizhou would resist him. If she really did, he could use her resistance as an excuse for him to get physical. To his dismay, Gu Shizhou did not even try to resist. He wanted her to change her attire, and she did. Things did not happen the way he had expected, so he was quite disappointed. With a tight smile, he said, "You are unusually obedient today." Her compliance had taken away his sole excuse to rip off the facade of mutual respect between them. Gu Shizhou was caught in a daze while staring blankly at the wedding dress. The wedding dress looked familiar to her, it was as if she had worn it before a long, long time ago. She turned to him for assurance. Do I look good in this wedding dress? Astonished, he added with a firm nod, yes, you look good. It is a shame that the house has no mirror, I cannot see it myself. Gu Shizhou expressed her regret and disappointment over the matter. I will get you a mirror, Yun Yanli offered enthusiastically. He momentarily put aside his perverted intention to attend to her needs. It was not the right time for him to express his perverted obscenities. Yun Yanli heaved a sigh of regret before exiting. Gu Shizhou was relieved, as well. She had already figured out the reason for his visit, so she decided not to do anything foolish to trigger him. However, she knew the man well. Having made a firm decision, he would not change his mind so easily. Soon, Yun Yanli returned with a big bronze mirror and placed it in front of her. The woman in the reflection of the mirror was absolutely exquisite. Yun Yanli was tempted by her beauty again and firmly wrapped his arm around her willowy waist. Shizhou, he called out. Gu Shizhou froze, for she knew any slight resistance would trigger him even more. She acted as if she had never noticed his proximity and his arm on her waist. Intensely, she only gazed at the woman in the mirror in slight remorse. Too bad, she sighed. What is? Yun Yanli answered hoarsely. I have always wanted a proper wedding night, where I can have a ceremony before sharing the first night together. Fui was too eager back then. He did not even promise me a wedding, which has now become my regret. The experience seemed to reinforce her sense of loss. Every woman wishes for the perfect wedding, she added. Yun Yanli remained quiet. There was a look of uncertainty in his eyes as he began to struggle with his inner thoughts. If he forced her to do it, she would definitely bear a grudge against him. But if he could wait until their wedding night, perhaps it was the best he could do to make up for her regret. The struggle continued as Yun Yanli remained silent for a moment. Yun Yanli, do you really want to marry me? Gu Shizhou suddenly asked, as if she never noticed the struggle that was ongoing in his heart. Yun Yanli was caught off guard by her sudden question. Why do you ask so? With a smile, he reassured her, haven't you noticed how I feel about you? Gu Shizhou softly replied, I have. Yun Yanli, we used to be friends who have shared good times and bad together. I do not want to picture you as the bad guy that I do today. She started to talk about their friendship. Quietly, Yun Yanli was also reminiscing their good times together. Gu Shizhou sat while holding her knees. I do not have many to call friends, she sighed. Chapter 25-29, A Battle of Wits and Courage, 3. I do not have many to call friends, but you were one of the few. I still remember when I first arrived in the upper bound, I barely knew anyone. Luckily, you were there to save my blushes. Gu Shizhou started to talk about what they had been through together. Deeply moved, Yun Yanli started to recollect his former glamour, where he was still a cheerful, ambitious, and compassionate young prince in his teens. She was the first girl that he had ever been attracted to. Those were the sweet, old times. Yun Yanli's hand was already holding her waist tie. With a tug, the tie would immediately loosen, and she would be completely undressed. As a consequence, he would also ruin their intimate conversation, which they had not had in a very long while. He slowly let go of his hand and sat by her side. You were a lovely and innocent girl, but arrogant on account of your seniority, he teased her. Gu Shizhou laughed along. I had always thought that I was older than most of you. They laughed together, and that helped ease the tension. The two friends sat together, recollecting the ups and downs of their friendship. Gu Shizhou tried very hard not to trigger him, so all they talked about was the happy stuff. An hour later, Gu Shizhou suddenly suggested in a somewhat awkward manner, could you please send me some snacks or fruits? I have not eaten anything in the past 3 days. I am hungry. Yun Yanli hesitated. I thought that food is no longer a necessity for you since you are now junior immortal. He also knew that the situation could be different in the Shura world and that she could be famished at the moment, but he felt the need to starve her so that she would be more obliging. As a junior immortal, a little hunger would not do any harm. Now that she had asked about it, Yun Yanli no longer felt the need to torture her, so he rose and went to prepare some food. He came back with a plate of fruits and another plate of dessert. He had even brought her some dishes and a bowl of congee. Gu Shijiu started eating right away. Yun Yanli looked at her fixedly, seemingly preoccupied with some inner thoughts. While she was still eating, he suddenly asked, "Aren't you worried that I might poison your food?" Gu Shijiu was still chewing a mouthful of bread at that moment. "No, I trust you on this," she said. Nothing could make her feel even worse than what she was going through at the moment. The poison was also unnecessary. Yun Yanli stayed quiet until she was finally full. "Would you like to play a game of chess?" she invited. Yun Yanli was a good player, as well. They had a few games before, and each side shared an equal amount of wins and losses. Thus, he swiftly took out his chessboard. "Great." Gu Shijiu continued, "That one is boring. We should play something new, with only the pieces and not the board." While she was explaining, she quickly drew a few lines on a piece of paper. Soon, a complicated chess pattern was revealed before Yun Yanli's eyes. "Do you know how to play this version?" Gu Shijiu asked. His frown had clearly denoted his confusion. "I have never seen anything like this before." "It is all right. I will teach you." Gu Shijiu was exceptionally patient with him. 3 days of imprisonment must have made her suffer from boredom. Yun Yanli looked at her with a firm nod of acknowledgement. "All right." Thus, both of them started playing the game. Yun Yanli was a man of great intelligence. Despite his lack of skill, he managed to keep up and became familiarized with the strategy. They had a total of 5 games, but Yun Yanli had lost them all due to his lack of practice. However, every loss was less severe than the one before, which proved that his skills were slowly advancing. Chapter 25-30, A Battle of Wits and Courage, 4. The game was quite addictive, so Yun Yanli was interested in going a few more rounds, but Gu Shijiu has obviously tired. "Let us call it a day. We will play another game tomorrow." Yun Yanli thought about it for a moment and agreed, "All right, I will revisit you tomorrow." He raised his hand to seal away her acupuncture points again. "Sorry. I have to do so." Gu Shijiu did not argue. She only nodded. His eyes lingered on her face for a while before leaving the room. He longed for sweet little moments between them. He wished that time could just stop for him. Gu Shijiu could not help but heave a sigh of relief, for the danger was finally over. She lay on the bed and started contemplating. Obviously, Yun Yanli was not familiar with the game, and the way he played was completely different from the so-called creator of the universe. Apparently, he was not the reincarnation of the man that she had a dream of. She moved her wrist around to flex it a little, being sore from the games. Before Yun Yanli placed the spell on her acupuncture points again, she secretly used a skill that she learned from the modern world to alter the position of the acupuncture points by half an inch. Due to the slight difference, Yun Yanli's spell had failed, and one of his attempts had actually freed the flow of spiritual power in her body. In other words, her kung fu was slowly recovering. She had at least 1/10 of it back. The progress was not impressive, but it was enough for her to carry out some plans. As soon as Yun Yanli left the room, he saw the young palace master standing not too far away from the door. Her blank gaze was clearly fixed in his direction. Frowningly, Yun Yanli asked, "What is the matter?" The young palace finally recovered from her preoccupation and said, "Master, there is only one more ingredient left. My men are working on it right now. Everything can be prepared by tomorrow night." Yun Yanli acknowledged with a nod. "Well done." He complimented her, but only verbally. He did not give her a firm tap on the shoulder, like how he used to. There was a look of despair in her eyes, but she decided to fulfill her role and continued to report, "I have some news from other cities." Recently, some masters of Kung Fu have been making their appearances quite frequently around the administrative centers. The rain of blood should have happened 2 days ago in Legua City, but it did not. Because of that, people are ready to make trouble. More and more have joined forces to search for the star formation in other cities. There seems to be a massive uprising. Yun Yanli was not quite bothered. They are nothing but a bunch of fools. What damage can they do? Relax. When they finally see the wedding, they will believe in everything I say. The young palace master thought about it for a moment and asked faintly, Master, are you really going to marry Gu Shizhou? Didn't you say that the wedding was only baiting Di Fui to show up? That is only one of the many reasons. I am still going to marry her. She was his biggest obsession, so he needed to make sure that she belonged to him. He was even more excited at the thought that she used to be Di Fui's woman. The young palace master's face turned pale. What? What about Dyer? You have promised to marry me. Slightly surprised, Yun Yanli reassured, don't worry. You have my word. I shall not treat you unfairly. When I finally reclaim my throne as the Emperor Immortal, I will definitely make you my imperial concubine immortal. What about Gu Shizhou? She has never stopped plotting against you. Her heart never belonged to you. Are you still going to appoint her as your Empress Immortal? Yun Yanli was obviously annoyed. Ming Dai, you have just crossed the line. Who do you think you are to meddle with my personal affairs? Intimidated, Ming Dai quickly apologized for her misbehavior and said nothing more. Yun Yanli needed her, so he would try not to upset her. He said some comforting words to her and made a promise that he would marry her the same way as he did with Gu Shizhou in a month. Chapter 25-31, The Rescue. Ming Dai gazed at him in despair. She never cared about the wedding. He was the one that she cared about. However, compliance had become a regular tendency. No matter how uncomfortable she was, she would not complain about it. Swiftly, she left. Yun Yanli could sense her disappointment but decided to disregard it. Her loyalty would remain unchanged, no matter how bad she felt. Therefore, her emotions were never his concern. All that he cared about was how she could help in his plans. He stood, contemplating for a while before heading towards Kun Shui. Kun Shui was still trapped within a uniquely crafted net. Yun Yanli decided that torment was the best way to express how much he actually loathed the creature, so he altered the net to make it inflict more pain. Within the net, Kun Shui felt like he was lying on a bed full of sharp needles that had not stopped poking him. The painful sensation was almost like being stung by a swarm of unforgiving wasps. The worst part was that he could not transform into his human form and could only stay as a fish. In order to please Yun Yanli, the guards had even put him on a fire. He used to be immune to the fires of the mortal world. However, the net had largely restricted his spiritual power, so he could only count on his skin to resist the heat. His body was never burned, but the ashes were making him uncomfortable. Yun Yanli found that the Kun's dirty face was rather pleasing to watch, so he would visit the fish every day. Today, he showed up as usual and stood before Kun Shui to observe him. Delighted, he saw that the Kun's dried skin was starting to shrivel to an unappealing state. Kun Yunzhan, are you comfortable? Kun Shui opened his eyes and threw him a stern look. I have a flame in me that has nowhere to go. Let me share it with you, and I shall be comfortable. After 4 days of being grilled, Kun Zuyu's voice had become slightly rough and harsh. Yun Yanli responded by swinging his sleeve to fan the fire and make it bigger. He had even added some ingredients to stimulate the burning sensation. Therefore, all of Kun Zuyu's body was engulfed in flames. A normal fire could barely harm him, but not the fire of Samadhi. The powerful source of the fire was able to burn through his skin and injure his muscle tissues. In pain, he started trembling. Yun Yanli surely took the joy from the Kun's misfortune. The pearl of Kun was a treasure, but it had to be swallowed immediately. A long meditation of 7 days and nights was required to absorb the power of the pearl completely. Yun Yanli would be busy, so he could not isolate himself in meditation. He had to keep Kun Shui alive until he finally had the time. Therefore, he decided to torture the Kun for the time being to release his grudge. Kun Shui closed his eyes to endure the pain and ignored Yun Yanli. Kun Yunzhan, after Shijiu and I are married, I will kill you and retrieve the pearl for myself. Also, your skin seems like a good material to make a dress for Shijiu. Kun Shui finally opened his eyes to give Yun Yanli some attention. He said politely, "Are you dreaming? Sleepwalking in broad daylight?" Then, he added with a smile, "Did you tell me all your plans just to break my heart? Are you in love with me? You are always interested in my emotions. Are you trying to make me jealous?" Yun Yanli did not want to talk with the creature anymore. He only wanted to grill and torture the fish as much as he could. He raised his hand to cast 3 portions of samadhi to the flames. Also, he sent more men to add firewood and fuel the flames. Yun Yanli finally went away while Kun Shui was inevitably rolling around in pain. Chapter 2532, The Rescue. 2. The pain was unbearable to the point where Kun Zuya felt like he was in the process of being grilled. Nonetheless, he was more concerned about the jade statue than the pain. He had seen many things in his lifetime. Knowing Di Fui personally, he was convinced that the man had transformed into the jade statue. The status was too extraordinary. If Di Fui were removed from the equation, he could not think of anyone to turn the tide back into their favor. There was an army in the Devil Kingdom, but they would not stand a chance against Yun Yanli's men. Moreover, even if they could stall his team, no one was powerful enough to defeat Yun Yanli. If he could bring the fight outside of the Shura world, perhaps he could teach the lousy prince a lesson. Unfortunately, he was trapped here. In fact, he had been defeated and captured. The 4 guards who stood around him were half-orcs. Kun Shui had been observing them for a while, but he could not tell their origins. They did not look like failed mutated beings. Instead, it seemed that they were intentionally built as a physical combination of a beast and a human. It was certainly not a comfortable sight for Kun Shui. Furthermore, their behavior was also weird, and they knew some of the worst ways to torture their captives. While Kun Shui was still being grilled over the fire, they could somehow always think of a way to make him feel worse. At first, they threw a big bowl of salt water and pepper at him. Then, they decided that it was a good idea to use an iron brush to scrub his wounded skin. The torment was too much for Kun Shui to endure. For the first time, he was thinking of a way to end his life. While he was still struggling, Yun Yanli had suddenly come back. The 4 guards were surprised by his unusually frequent visits. Nevertheless, they quickly went forward to greet him. Yun Yanli dismissed them with a wave. Apparently, he was here to check on Kun Shui again. "Hey, what made you come back so soon? Are you sad to be away from me? Are you worried that I might get burned alive?" "Don't worry. Only my skin is shed. The other parts of my body are fine. If you let me go, I will be sure you please you in a way that you never knew possible, a sensation that will make you come back asking for more." Yun Yanli did not answer him. Instead, he walked around the fish to observe it closer before giving it a gentle tap on its back. "Your skin is truly fire-resistant." The 4 men chimed in, "True. The fish's skin is peculiar. It will not get burned no matter how big the flame gets." Yun Yanli waved his hand as a sign to ask them to come over. "Come and have a look. Are there any cracks on its body?" The 4 men did as told. Suddenly, they were overwhelmed by a strong and yet pleasant scent. Before they knew it, they suffered a blackout as they collapsed to the ground. Kun Shui froze momentarily. In disbelief, he looked at Yun Yanli, not knowing what to do. You, Miss Gu." Yun Yanli smiled at him and said, "You got me." Gu Shijiu answered him in her own voice. She took the form of Yun Yanli and sneaked inside to free Kun Shui. Gu Shijiu then took Kun Shui down from the rack and flipped the net over. She studied the net for a while and quickly thought of a way to break it open. Kun Shui was finally freed. Kun Shui disregarded the pain on his body and transformed into his human figure. You have escaped. He looked at Gu Shijiu in awe. Gu Shijiu skipped all the pleasantries. Please help me release the pressure on some of my acupuncture points. I barely have enough spiritual power. When her spiritual power had returned by 1/10 from before, she immediately broke the array formation of the Golden House and teleported her way out. Quietly, she had tailed Yun Yanli around and found the underground prison. After Yun Yanli left, she took his form and came to Kun Zuyu's rescue. Chapter 2533, The Rescue, 3. Even though Gu Shijiu managed to use her teleportation ability, what Yun Yanli had done to seal her acupuncture points required at least a golden immortal to undo. Therefore, Gu Shijiu could only utilize 1/10 of her power. Luckily, Kun Zuyu's spiritual power was strong enough to help her unseal her acupuncture points. However, he still needed Gu Zijia's guidance to do so. Having restored Gu Shijiu, Kun Shui cast the cleaning spell around him a few times to cleanse his body. He really could not take the disgusting scent around him that reminded him of dried salted fish. He noticed that the 4 half-orcs were still unconscious on the ground. Obviously, they had been poisoned. Miss Gu, did you spread the poison on my body? Gu Shijiu had given Kun Shui a tap on the back while he was still trapped in the flames. It was right about that time that the 4 half-orcs had collapsed. He remembered also smelling a very pleasant scent around him at the time, despite his bodhi's condition. Yes, the effect of the poison was accelerated by the heat. You will not be affected as I have only put it on your skin. Unconvinced, Kun Shui used the cleaning spell again. Feeling more comfortable in his own skin again, he realized that they should not stay here any longer. Then again, he was not someone who would take a beating for nothing. Immediately, he tied the men up very tightly and muted them. In a row, he strung them together on a stick and placed the stick over the flames. In anguish, the half-orc's suffering had just begun. He was obviously delighted to make them suffer. There he stood, clapping along while they screamed in agony. How can I keep the ravishing the sensation to myself? I must let you all know how you made me feel. Then, he poured the hot bowl of pepper and salt water onto the burning men. They did not have the same water and fire-resistant skin as Kun Shui. Hence, their suffering was significantly worse than Kun Zuyu's. While he was having fun, Gu Shijiu took the time to ask him a few things and found out that he, too, had no idea where the jade statue was or where the others were imprisoned. Therefore, Gu Shijiu knew that she had to keep looking. However, the underground prison was a very secret chamber with many turns and crossings. Moreover, the place was also secured with an array formation. Without knowing the array formation, one could not possibly escape from the place even if the exit gate was wide open. Fortunately, this was nothing for Gu Shijiu. In the depths of the underground prison, they found Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua. The two men had obviously suffered some degree of torment as well. They were found collapsed on some hay. Their clothes were in shreds and tatters, revealing the wounds that severely marked their skin. They lay unconscious, like two dead beggars in the streets during a cold winter. Gu Zijia's surprise visit had brought tears to their eyes. Miss Gu. The lattice kung fu was, without a doubt, powerful. She managed to escape from her own cell and even came to their rescue. Their injuries were so severe that a speedy recovery was not possible even with the help of Gu Zijia's magic pills. In searching for them, Gu Shijiu had knocked out the 2 guards and disguised them as the 2 guardians. With their voice muted, Gu Shijiu placed them in the cell to temporarily fool the other guards in the underground prison. The security in the prison was very tight, with the guards regularly patrolling the place. They would be easily exposed if they were to escape on foot, so Gu Shijiu decided to use her teleportation skill to bring them out. At the level of a junior immortal, each teleportation could stretch over the distance of about 50 miles. Although she was unsure of her exact location, leaving the city was not really a problem. One teleportation could solve it all. As soon as they arrived at the outskirts, they immediately realized that they were in Luohua City. It was the first city that Gu Shijiu had ever been to in the Shura world. However, it was not the right time to reminisce about the past. Guardian Jean quickly used his secret signal to summon the soldiers from the Devil Kingdom. He had also met up with the spies from the Devil Kingdom and told them to bring the news back. There was a total of 8 guardians in the Devil Kingdom. 3 were out, so there were 5 left. The 5 guardians were supposed to stay behind and secure the kingdom, but as soon as they received the news, they immediately came to help with their most elite troops. After information traveled through all sorts of news portals, the guardians found out that the enemy, unfortunately, seized the Devil King. At this very moment, the guardians were scattered about trying to obtain more information secretly. Fortunately, Guardian Jean was able to communicate his location to them. Soon after, the rest of the guardians were on their way. Even though backup was on the way, Gu Shijiu could not leave Di Fui behind. She did not want to wait for the troops to arrive. Instead, she wanted to turn back and search the place again on her own. However, Kun Shui stopped her. "Miss Gu, allow me to go with you." Gu Shijiu was reluctant to bring him along as she believed that she would be able to move faster if she acted alone. Kun Shui could read her mind and decided to explain himself. "Miss Gu, I am not going to help you find the jade statue. I am only going to disguise as you." "Huh? Miss Gu, you are the one that Yun Yanli cares about, so he must have installed some kind of surveillance in your room. Without anyone to step in for you, he will soon find out that you had disappeared. He would surely go into a frantic search. It will not be helpful for your quest as he would surely secure the jade statue knowing that you would go looking for it. Let me stay in the room and pretend to be you so that Yun Yanli will not be suspicious about your whereabouts. You can save me after you find my master's statue." He had a point. Also, since Kun Shui was a master at disguising himself, Yun Yanli would not notice a thing. Therefore, she agreed to his plan. Swiftly, she went straight back into the golden house with Kun Shui using her teleportation ability. Gu Shijiu was a very efficient person. She had sorted out many things in just a brief period of time. In fact, it had not even been an hour since they left. Nothing in the golden house seemed to have changed. Without wasting time, Kun Shui quickly disguised himself as Gu Shijiu. He even imitated her energy level and temperament. He seemed at ease, just like how Gu Shijiu would normally look. Relieved, she gave Kun Shui a few pointers before leaving. She also noticed that the surveillance camera that she had tampered with was still in the room, which proved that Yun Yanli had not stepped into her room while she was away. As soon as he left the underground prison, he immediately headed towards another secret location. Meanwhile, Mr. Zhu had been seized in another place. Since Yun Yanli was driven to conquer the Devil Kingdom, the devil-quenching clothing was pivotal to his success. Therefore, he needed Mr. Zhu to be on his side. However, Mr. Zhu was no ordinary man. His loyalty to Gu Shijiu was a problem for Yun Yanli, so he needed to think of other ways to convince him. Yun Yanli was going to make him agree, even if he had to do so forcibly. Yun Yanli had imprisoned Mr. Zhu in an underwater cell by submerging the man entirely in water. Understanding the man's abilities, he knew that Mr. Zhu would survive. After 4 days of being trapped in the water, Yun Yanli finally thought that he would have had enough. It was time to play nice. He went to the underwater cell to visit Mr. Zhu. He took a good look at Mr. Zhu and noticed that the tone of his face was in his natural shades of green. Therefore, Yun Yanli activated a switch and raised him out of the water. Looking at Mr. Zhu, who was now drenched, Yun Yanli could not help but feel delighted. He began to give a speech that he had long prepared in his head. He fluently conveyed how the situation generally looked like and advised him to choose his allegiance wisely. He was confident that the Devil King would not be able to make a comeback, so he would be the one to unite the Devil Kingdom as one with the other cities. Also, he added that he would be marrying Gu Shijiu soon, so technically, it was not a betrayal for Zhu Duqing to show his loyalty to him. The more Yun Yanli spoke, the more he was convinced by his own speech. However, the bamboo man remained silent the entire time. Yun Yanli was obviously annoyed by the bamboo man's ignorance. Yun Yanli knew that Mr. Zhu was not a patient man. Under such circumstances, he would undoubtedly be challenging him instead of keeping quiet as if nothing had happened. Had he been muted? Yun Yanli wanted to examine his pulse but was surprised by his unusually solid arm. Stunned, he hit the man with a streak of light only to find that it was only a bamboo carved into the shape of a man and covered with a set of loose robes that Mr. Zhu would normally wear. In fact, it was only a puppet, contemptuously smiling at him. Yun Yanli's jaw dropped in utter astonishment. Zhu Duqing had escaped. When exactly did this happen? Largely unimpressed, Yun Yanli called upon the 2 guards that he had assigned to keep watch over Zhu Duqing. He found out that they were equally confused. Consequently, he killed them for their incompetence. Swiftly, Yun Yanli ran to the Golden House to check if Gu Shijiu was still there. Chapter 25-35. While there was life, there was hope. Yun Yanli stormed into the Golden House and quickly checked on the woman that he had held captive there. Gu Shijiu was taking a rest on the bed. At ease, she looked carefree and was soundly asleep. Her lashes were like curtains, casting faint shades below her eyes. She looked just as fragile as ever and was still there. Was she real? Could she be a puppet as well? Yun Yanli approached her to take a closer look. Abruptly, Gu Shijiu opened her eyes and was very surprised to see him. "You," she said hoarsely in a sleepy voice. It sounded just like her. Even her facial expressions looked normal. Yun Yanli was relieved that she was still there. With a calmer mind, he realized that it was rather unlikely for her to be able to escape. After all, the Golden House was made with the starry formation, which he had learned from the mysterious voice in his dreams. No one, not even a mighty immortal, could possibly leave the house. Gu Shijiu was merely a junior immortal, and her spiritual power and physical strength were both restricted, so there was no way she could escape. He took a look around the house, and a tiny crystal in the corner caught his attention. It was supposed to be a surveillance camera used to spy on Gu Shijiu, but it was broken. He then turned to look at Gu Shijiu, who was guilty of breaking it. "I do not wish to be spied on when I rest." She had discovered his little trick. It was indeed a perverted thing to spy on a girl when she was alone in the house. Anyone would break the camera if the same thing happened to them. Yun Yanli was quite embarrassed, so he made up an excuse and said that the surveillance was for her safety. Then, he quickly left. Gu Shijiu sat up casually and let out a scornful laugh. Her impersonator was impressed by his acting. Luckily, he was able to get back in time. Otherwise, the whole plan would have been exposed. Nevertheless, it was odd that Yun Yanli would race into the place so abruptly. Had Gu Zijia's tracks been discovered by Yun Yanli so quickly? It did not seem likely. After all, if Yun Yanli discovered her, he would not have come into the Golden House to check on her. So, what made him suddenly search the place? Had Yun Yanli found out about Kun Zuya's escape? It was easy for them to disguise the guardians who were in the cell. However, it was difficult for Kun Shui to find a replacement for himself, as no one could possibly disguise as the mighty Kun. Due to Zhu Duqing's escape, Yun Yanli had sent his men to check on the guardians and soon discovered that they were both gone. This made him furious, and he ordered the entire city to be searched. The whole situation became tense. Gu Shijiu wanted to go into the administrative center to look for Di Fuya's statue but was surprised by the dramatic turn of events that unfolded in the city. Learning from his earlier mistake, Yun Yanli had figured out that the most dangerous place was often the place that people would overlook, so he started by searching his own residence. The man would have almost seen Gu Shijiu there. But luckily, she reacted quickly enough and avoided him. Yun Yanli had many men working for him. Some of them were specialized in hunting people down. Their majestic beings would help by sniffing out the scent of their victims. Although Gu Shijiu was eager to find the jade statue, she dared not do so publicly. While there was life, there was hope. As long as she was free, there would still be plenty of chances for the rescue. Hence, she used her teleportation ability again and went straight back into the Golden House. She wanted to free Kun Shui, but as soon as she arrived, she could immediately tell that Yun Yanli was approaching. "Miss Gu, you have to go." I need to stay behind and keep him here. Don't worry. He will not be able to tell the difference. Miss Gu, you should go now. I have to keep him here. Don't worry, he won't recognize me. If he finds out that you have escaped, he will force you out by threatening to kill your people. If that happens, it will cause unnecessary casualties. Kun Shui was very calm, and his analysis was very reasonable. Gu Shizhou was not an indecisive person. She took a light breath and said, "Please take care. I will come and save you later." She then turned around and teleported away. Just when her figure had disappeared, Yun Yanli had once again entered the door. Kun Shui sat on the ground while still disguised as Gu Shizhou. "You are here again. What is going on?" Yun Yanli did not recognize him. However, he had his suspicions about Gu Shizhou and knew that it would not be wise for him to overlook anything. Therefore, he repaired the hidden camera in the Golden House. In just a few minutes, he managed to piece it all back together. Knowing that Gu Shizhou had uncovered his secret device and might destroy it again, he added a protective cover around the camera that could only be destroyed by a golden immortal. He also told her not to destroy the camera this time, or there would be consequences. Gu Shizhou understood what he meant. She bit her lips and said, "Rest assured." Yun Yanli was stunned for a second by the response he received. He smiled at her and said, "Shizhou, it's good to see you being so obedient." Kun Shui looked down and did not respond any further. However, he sneered in his heart. He had sarcastic thoughts in his head as well about a possible relationship between the two of them. But of course, since he was disguising as Gu Shizhou, he did not say anything of that sort as it could expose his identity. Nonetheless, he did take the opportunity to ask one of his concerns, "Why are you so anxious all of a sudden? What happened? Did someone run away?" Yun Yanli stared at her and asked, "Can you guess?" Yun Yanli then glared at Gu Shizhou rather fiercely, which made Kun Shui slightly nervous. Nevertheless, he tried to make a guess. "Kun Shui, why did you guess it is him?" "Because among the people you have seized, he is the most capable one." Kun Shui was never stingy on praising himself. Yun Yanli snorted. "He is just a mutated dirty pervert. He is going to be my meal sooner or later." Kun Shui was speechless. In fact, he thought to himself, "You are the dirty one. I am a Kun. There is a world of difference between the two." Fortunately, he calmed down soon enough as he usually did not concern himself with ignorant people. He smiled and did not speak any further. The mythological creature's movements were very much alike to Gu Zijius, and since Yun Yanli was in a hurry, he did not realize anything abnormal. Since everything seemed in order, Yun Yanli soon left the room. Outside the city, Gu Shizhou met up with Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua once again and found that there were 5 more people together with them, 1 female and 4 males. Each of them had exceptional auras, and 2 of them were twins who looked lovely. When they saw her return, Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua both breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "Miss Gu, could you find the jade statue?" Gu Shizhou studied the 5 people before responding. Understanding the situation, Guardian Jin quickly introduced them, "Miss Gu, they are also the personal guardians of the Devil King." Pointing to a tall, burly, black man with a cold look, he added, "He is the second eldest in our team, Shui Junzhou. He is good at stealth missions and assassinations." Following that, he pointed to a man who was rather short and had a bird on his shoulder. "He is the third eldest, Wan Hongxiu. He is good at tracking people. There are only a few people in the Shura world who can escape from him." Next, he pointed to the twins in green and gray. "They are the 6th and 7th, Tian Xiuxiu and Tian Mimi. Tian Xiuxiu is a puppet master. On the other hand, Tian Mimi is good at spells and creating creatures." Following their introduction, Guardian Jin pointed to the only woman present who was dressed in red. The woman looked charming with a slender body. Besides her seductive figure, a red snake that was wrapped around her wrist would also catch any onlooker's attention. It made her look mysterious. She is the youngest, Feng Ruhua. She is good with knives and creatures. Gu Shizhou had not spent a lot of time in the Devil Kingdom, so, this was the first that she met these 5 people. Even though she did not know them, it was apparent that they were familiar with her. All of them greeted her at once, Miss Gu. The amount of respect they showed her seemed a little too much, especially given her current condition. Nonetheless, Gu Shizhou knew that this had something to do with her relationship with Di Fui. The 2 loyal subordinates probably informed the rest of the team that Gu Shizhou was a competent strategist and that she was the sweetheart of the Devil King. It was also likely that she would end up being the Devil Queen. Observing them carefully, Gu Shizhou could easily tell that these people were all elites. They seemed to carry a strong aura around them that suggested they would not easily serve people. Hence, Di Fui's ability to make them his subordinates clearly showed how much they respected him. Since Gu Shizhou was the lover of the Devil King, they certainly respected her as his partner. However, it seemed unlikely that they would serve her. Therefore, after greeting her, they kept quiet. Miss Gu, where is the Devil King? This was clearly a matter of concern to the 7 guardians. Upon hearing the question, Gu Shizhou only looked down at the ground. She had heard from Di Fui that his guardians were very capable people who were also loyal to him. Contemplating what to tell them, she took a gamble. The Devil King is severely injured and has turned into a jade statue temporarily. He is now in Yun Yanli's possession, and I have not figured out his exact location yet. A jade statue? Was the jade statue actually their king? Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua were shocked while the others looked at each other in disbelief. How did he become a jade statue? Tian Xiuxiu frowned. Yeah, we have never seen him utilize this skill before. Tian Mimi followed. The skills possessed by the Devil King are quite complicated and unique. Perhaps, this is one of his self-defense mechanisms. Wan Hongxiu tapped the bird on his shoulder and casually added to the conversation. The tone of his voice suggested that he was calm about the situation. Nah. Let's not waste time on the trivial. Regardless of what he has turned into, he is our Devil King, and we need to rescue him. We have to think of a solution quickly. Feng Ruhua spoke her mind to the crowd. Although she looked pretty and charming, it was clear from the tone of her voice that she was not someone to be messed with in the Shura world. What about Kun Shui? Shui Junzhou suddenly asked. He had been rather quiet the entire time. He pretended to be me and stayed back in Luohua City to prevent Yun Yanli from figuring out that I had escaped. Gu Shizhou was honest with them about everything. Yun Yanli likes Miss Gu, right? He is preparing a wedding for the both of you, isn't he? Wan Hongxiu was very quick and managed to piece everything together. He had previously entered the city to gather some information from the people. This is really a case of a toad that wants to eat swan meat. Tian Mimi chuckled. How dare he think about stealing the lover of the Devil King? He must be tired of living. Tian Xiuxiu smirked. I will teach him how to be a gentleman in the future. Feng Ruhua touched the fire snake on her wrist, as a wicked smile appeared on her face. She then patted Gu Zijia's shoulder and said, Miss Gu, don't be afraid. Since our master loves you, we consider you to be partially our master as well. We will protect you. We will never let that guy take advantage of you. Feng Ruhua was very friendly to Gu Shizhou. In fact, when one of her arms rested on Gu Zijia's shoulder, it made them look like a pair of sisters. Feng Ruhua, she is the lover of our king. Get your claws off of her. Our Devil King will definitely punish you if he finds out what you have done. Guardian Jin quickly reminded her. What are you nervous about? Although I like women, I am very well behaved. Having openly confessed, Feng Ruhua pulled her arm off Gu Zijia's shoulder. The explanation certainly helped Gu Shizhou understood the context. Let's discuss the next steps for us. The second eldest guardian, who dressed in black, hardly spoke, but when he did, each of his sentences was straight to the point. According to the news I received, Yun Yanli has spread the news that he is going to publicly eliminate a devil during his wedding ceremony the day after tomorrow. I also heard that a statue of a devil would be destroyed in public. This should be the statue that we are trying to find. Wan Hongxiu spoke slowly, even though the news he was delivering was very shocking. Shui Junzhou turned away but was dragged back by Tian Xiuxiu. Second brother, where are you going? I am going to retrieve that statue, even if it means sacrificing my life. Shui Junzhe's words clearly showed his determination to save his king. The other guardians also acknowledged his statement and agreed. They were all willing to sacrifice their lives for him. Feng Ruhua turned her wrist, which seemed to have activated the snake that lay there. Its head raised a few times as it glided across the floor. After a while, there seemed to be a sound coming from all directions. Gu Shijiu took a look around her and was impressed. Countless snakes of different patterns and sizes seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There were more than 1,000 of them. Feng Ruhua then retrieved a flute and put it on her lips. It looked as though she was blowing into it, but Gu Shijiu could not hear any sound coming from the flute. Nonetheless, she could tell that the red snake seemed to understand it. The creature seemed to be communicating with the other snakes, and all of a sudden, the other snakes nodded. After that, the red snake's head seemed to drill down into the ground, and it disappeared. Soon after, the other snakes followed. The scene was spectacular. Gu Shijiu looked at Feng Ruohuo and had to ask, "What are you doing?" "They will follow Shaoqi to the city to find the jade statue." "Miss Gu, you can rest assured that these snakes are persistent. There is also nowhere they can't go. I believe we will have good news in just 2 hours. It might not be easy to find a living person, but it shouldn't be a problem to find a jade statue." The other guardians had faith in Feng Ruhua, so they began to think about how to extract the jade statue once they figured out its location. Gu Shijiu listened to them discussing for a moment before she finally said, "Once we know the exact location, I have a way to get the statue out. What you need to do is to plan how we will escape with the Devil King." The guardians looked at Gu Shijiu in disbelief. They were the elites of the Devil Kingdom and were very knowledgeable. They knew how capable Yun Yanli was right now. So, how could Gu Shijiu single-handedly steal the statue from him? Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua had a better understanding of Gu Zijia's ability compared to the rest of the group that just met her. Naturally, they believed her and immediately nodded their heads. Miss Gu has the ability to teleport. Once we know the exact location of the jade statue, it's easier for her to steal it. Just like that, the plan was set in place. The team was ready, but to their dismay, the snakes never returned. Instead of the snakes, Yun Yanli's troops had arrived. These elites had come to Luohua City to protect the city from any danger during this critical time. Their spiritual power were all above that of ordinary immortals, and their weapons and equipment were all rather sophisticated. They came with fierce creatures that were the size of tigers and were fierce like wolves. They had furry black hair and green eyes, while also possessing a keen sense of smell and could attack ferociously at will. They also appeared to have some magical powers within them. Gu Shijiu and her gang had hidden themselves in the depths of the jungle. When these molossers rushed forward in search of them, they moved quickly across the place. If they met an unexpected roadblock, they would cut their way through in order to stay hidden. There were many beasts in the forest, which included tigers, black bears, leopards, and so on. These fierce beasts usually walked freely in the woods, but wherever the molossers arrived, they would all go into hiding. It was these fleeing beasts that had initially caught Gu Zijia's attention. The others noticed it as well and were fearful. Gu Shijiu wanted to instruct the team to leave the place for the time being. She was not afraid of a battle, but she did not want to attract any unnecessary attention from Yun Yanli, who still thought she was trapped in the Golden House. Therefore, the best move was to avoid Yun Yanli's troops temporarily. Her words had not been uttered when the second guardian, Shui Junzhou, suddenly raised his hand to cast a spell. A black mist rose from his body and quickly enveloped all of them. Gu Shijiu looked around and noticed that everyone was calm and did not seem concerned by the nearby creatures. Gu Shijiu was speechless. Feng Ruhua suddenly chucked. "Miss Gu, rest assured, our brother Shu's shadowing skill is extremely powerful. It can shield all our traces. Those hounds will never find us. Shadowing skill. It was the first time Gu Shizhou heard about this kind of skill. It's very simple. It basically integrates all of us into the shadows of the surrounding trees. Who can catch people in the shadows, right? This is a unique skill possessed by Brother Shui. The Devil King is a big fan of this ability. The Devil King wanted to bring him along, but Brother Shui was caught up with something and did not come back in time. He has been regretting his delay ever since. Well, it would appear as if Di Fui's subordinates were all hidden masters. When Feng Ruhua was explaining their abilities to Gu Shizhou, the first Molosser had already appeared in the distance. This speed of this Molosser was remarkable. In the blink of an eye, it had rushed to where Gu Shizhou and her gang were located. However, it seemed to be unable to see or smell them. Furthermore, although its hoof stepped on Tian Xiaoxia's cloak, it seemed to move away without noticing anything. Tian Xiuxiu frowned. He took out a pair of scissors out of nowhere and cut off the piece of cloth that had been contaminated. Miss Gu, our sixth brother has an obsession with cleanliness. He does not even want a little dust on his body and particularly dislikes animals. Such a shame. Feng Ruhua commented. While she was still talking, a few other Molossers seemed to emerge. They moved quickly right in front of this group of people and never even stopped. Soon after, all of them seemed to have gone deeper into the jungle. Only the last Molosser seemed to have noticed something. It was circling Tian Xiuxiu and sniffing around him. Lion, what did you find? Its owner then rushed over to check on it. The Molosser really looked like a male lion, and the color of its fur was different from the other Molossers. It was fiery red rather than black. The creature had circled Tian Xiuxiu for the sixth time and was still sniffing the place. Chapter 2540, No one will come and save you, no matter how loud you cry. Given how much we hated animals, Tian Xiuxiu tried very hard to suppress his feeling of wanting to kick the creature away. Sixth brother, when was the last time you took a bath? Wan Hongxiu joked. Shut up. I shower every day. Do you think I am like you? You smell like bird poop. The remark dissatisfied the bird that was standing on Wan Hongxiu's shoulder and suddenly opened its wings. It seemed to have left the man's shoulder. Meanwhile, Gu Shizhou finally got the chance to observe the creature more carefully. It was not a bird. It was a small fire-breathing dragon that was posing as a bird. Upon leaving Wan Hongxiu's shoulder, it seemed to transform into a being that was the height of a person. Its wings were about 4 meters wide. Shortly after, this bird spurted out fire towards Tian Xiuxiu. If Tian Xiuxiu did not dodge it in time, his hair would have been burnt. Strangely, Lion seemed to have been put off by the fire and no longer circled around Tian Xiuxiu. Impatiently, it left looking disappointed. Its tail seemed to slam against the ground, and the large tree next to it was uprooted. It crashed to the ground. Its owner frowned. Lion, what happened? Lion shook its head, exhaled, and turned to catch up to the other Molossers. Gu Shizhou breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that this shadowing skill was very effective. They had been talking and laughing around here, but yet they were not discovered. Besides that, Gu Shizhou also learned that this blood-red Molosser was incredibly powerful. Its tail could sweep down a big tree. Suddenly, there was a black shadow that seemed to be traveling around the place. As it stopped, a green figure could be seen in the jungle. Gu Zijia's eyes were sharp so she could tell with one glance that the green shadow was Tian Mimi. What was he doing? Miss Gu, he is suffering from some illness. Rest assured, he will come back later. Feng Ruhua explained. This young kid had an illness? Gu Shizhou then turned to look at Tian Xiuxiu, who looked very similar to Tian Mimi. The two of them looked like teenagers of 15 or 16 years old. There were even dimples on the fair cheeks whenever they smiled. The only difference was that one of their dimples was on the left, and the other's was on the right. The two youngsters looked pure and harmless, but when Tian Mimi returned, Gu Shizhou had changed her mind. Tian Mimi came back carrying the blood-red molosser. This molosser was huge, in fact, its head was the size of an actual lion's. Meanwhile, Tian Mimi was thin and looked weak. Upon his return, it looked just like a scene from Beauty and the Beast. The eyes of the molosser were filled with fear, it no longer had the prestige it carried just moments ago. Tian Mimi carried it like a puppy. Was his illness something that drove him to capture dogs? Gu Shijiu looked at Feng Ruhua for answers. Feng Ruhua sighed. Little Mimi has a problem. When he sees a talented monster, he gets very excited. He is more excited to see a talented creature than his own brother. He must grab it and train it, otherwise, he will not be able to sleep. For the time being, everyone was free until the snakes returned. Therefore, they watched as Tian Mimi trained the monster. Tian Mimi put the creature on the ground, but it wanted to run away as soon as it was free. Nonetheless, after taking 2 steps back, it seemed to be pulled by an invisible rope. It jumped and raised its head to issue a long squeal. Perhaps it was summoning a companion or its master. Tian Mimi stood in front of it and laughed evilly. You can call for help. However, no one will come and save you, no matter how loud you cry. Chapter 2541, He was not as ferocious. Gu Shijiu was speechless. She found this sentence too familiar to her. Whether it was in the upper bound or this world, a creature trainer was extremely rare. Gu Shijiu had lived in 3 different worlds before, but it was her first time encountering one. Being inquisitive, she wanted to see how Tian Mimi would tame the beast. Lion had clearly suffered in Tian Mimi's hands. It was very resistant to his approach. However, the master did not give in and grabbed the creature toward Tian Xiuxiu. Tian Xiuxiu was clearly disgustedly and took 2 steps back. Tian Mimi, what the hell are you doing? You know that I hate dogs. Lion, did you hear him? He hates dogs. Any dogs that go close to him get their skin peeled off. He even shatters their bones into dust. Yet, you circled the man 8 times just now. Just think about how he would punish you. It was apparent to the group that Lion could understand the human language. The hair over its entire body was standing after it heard that remark. Desperately, it slowly edged backward. Stupid child. It is useless for you to distance yourself. He is very vengeful. Even if you run away, he will go after you and skin you alive. He will make sure that you suffer for at least 8 days. Tian Mimi spoke in a pitiful tone. Tian Xiuxiu was dumbfounded. He was not as ferocious as what his colleague had suggested. At most, he would only kick the dog away. But, Lion believed the story. It already had tears in its eyes, and its body was shivering. Tian Mimi patted its head. Don't be afraid. If you treat me as your master, I will protect you so that others will not dare to touch you again. Lion looked at him but was unsure of what to do. Meanwhile, Tian Mimi maintained his persistence. You are a monster, why did you sell your life to the human that was here just now? The devil world is where you belong. To be honest, you are considered a traitor. Do you know how the monster world deals with traitors? They will slice them into pieces and feed their flesh to the birds. He then pointed to the small fire-breathing dragon posing on one Hongxia's shoulder. Can you see that broken bird? It has already eaten more than 10,000 traitors. The bird spat fire onto Tian Mimi. It only ate bamboo. When had it eaten the meat of traitors? Nonetheless, because Lion could not tell if Tian Mimi was lying, it willingly gave in to Tian Mimi's request. Its only request was that the man protects it. Tian Mimi began to cast a spell, and in a brief moment, a yellow light seemed to cover Lion's entire body. Shortly after, the creature seemed to have disappeared entirely. Is it done? Where did you keep it? Tian Mimi's fingers pinched another spell, and after a while, Lion fell from the sky and landed in front of him, bowing its head and waiting for an order. Go to your companions and take them to the south, Tian Mimi commanded. Lion acknowledged his order with a bark and ran away. It was incredibly fast and disappeared almost instantaneously. Gu Shijiu was familiar with the geography here. She knew that there was a large grassy swamp in the south. There was something unnatural about that place, and it was rumored that any creature that entered would be swallowed alive. Aren't you afraid that it will never come back? Tian Mimi wiped his face with his delicate fingers and smiled. No, I have already established a binding covenant with it. It can only be faithful to me for its entire life. But, aren't you afraid that the swamp will consume it? No. The creature already understands the nature of the place. Chapter 2542, A Pair of Good Girlfriends. Miss Gu, rest assured. Tian Mimi and the monster he has captured can communicate telepathically. He can also summon the creature at any time. Even if Lion accidentally falls into the swamp, Tian Mimi can summon it back. Gu Shijiu was relieved to learn that. However, she still had another question. Miss Feng, are you and your red snake also connected telepathically? Where is it now? Did it find the jade statue? Feng Ruhua coughed. I am not a creature trainer, so I am not connected to my snake. Nonetheless, Shaoqi is brilliant. It can use the ground drilling technique if it needs to do so. After entering the city, it will split up with other snakes. As long as either snake finds the jade statue, it will come back to me to report it. Is there a chance that it could get caught? No, Shaoqi is vigilant and is very stealthy. No one can catch it. Feng Ruhua was very confident in her snake's ability. Gu Shijiu nodded in acknowledgement and did not ask any further. She knew Yun Yanli was a very cautious person. And, since he already suspected that the jade statue was Di Fui, he would naturally hide the statue in a very secret place. She guessed that there would make a lot of wizardry barriers guarding it as well. Therefore, it was very unlikely that they would find it. Nevertheless, if the snakes are unable to find it in advance, Gu Zijiu's backup plan was to sneak in on the day of the wedding and wait for the opportunity to save him. Since Yun Yanli would place the jade statue in a public place, and her chances of stealing it would be the highest. Knowing Yun Yanli well, Gu Shijiu was certain that he would set up a number of traps nearby, waiting for the people from the devil world to be captured. However, sometimes, even a trap was an opportunity. Gu Shijiu and the team stayed up all night, but the snakes did not return. Apparently, something went wrong. Feng Ruhua blew a flute to summon the red snake, but nothing came back even after an hour. Tian Mimi sighed. Eighth sister, I had offered to help you train it and even establish a binding agreement with it, but you still didn't agree. Now, is there even a way for you to retrieve it? Feng Ruhua was concerned about the well-being of her pet. Therefore, Tian Mimi's remarks made her frustrated. It is none of your business. I prefer my creature to be free and comfortable with me. It makes them more independent. Forcing it to be submissive to me will only make it a dumb bird that has to wait for instructions from its master. It would not even have its own opinion. I refuse to treat Shaoqi this way. Tian Mimi was speechless by her response. In fact, his creatures had their own thoughts, but it was true that they could not act without his orders. Feng Ruhua was a very impulsive person. Since her snake had not returned, she wanted to go to the city to look for it. Just as she was about to head off, Gu Shijiu grabbed her arm. Don't be too hasty. Miss Gu, I must find Shaoqi. If I don't act quickly, it might be eaten. Are you familiar with the facial disguise technique? No, I am so beautiful, why do I need to disguise myself? Feng Ruhua raised her eyebrows high. Gu Shijiu made her sit on a boulder before continuing the conversation. Your beautiful face is too conspicuous. You will attract a lot of unnecessary attention, and it will be difficult for you to find your snake. It will be much more efficient for you to keep a low profile. In less than 15 minutes, the charming Feng Ruhua had now become a common old auntie in the neighborhood. Gu Shijiu also disguised herself in a similar outlook. The two of them now looked like a pair of good girlfriends. Right after that, Gu Shijiu teleported into the city with Feng Ruhua.